Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. I'm Mark Johnson, and it's the time of year when branding time, or that first round of vaccinations, when calves are about 2 to 4 months of age in spring calving herds, that we're using our cattle working facilities, and often that time of year when we maybe haven't used them for a few months, that we start considering improvements or maybe an addition to what we've already got. And so we revisit the topic of facilities, cattle working systems, and some basic things to take into consideration as we make plans or potentially make additions to them. Typical cattle corrals or working pens have got some fundamental components. We're going to have the catch pens, where whenever we first gather cattle out of pastures, we're going to be in those pens. We're going to have some probably wider sorting alleys out of those. Eventually, we're going to work into a crowding area. Crowding areas we're going to talk more about next week. There's a couple different options on crowding areas, but more details on that next week. Eventually, the purpose of our crowding system is to get cattle into an alleyway, or what we commonly refer to as a crowding alley, which is a means of getting them to the actual squeeze chute with a head catch system on it. Something like we're looking at here to my right as we shoot this week. Now, we can also have a loadout coming out of that alleyway, and that is another important part of the corral or working system itself. So those are the basic components. One of the things that's really important to think about is just normal cattle behavior. Several things to keep in mind. Typically, cattle process one thought at a time. They're an intelligent creature, but they tend to think about one thing at a time, and they instinctively want to see us whenever we're around them. They want to go by us if we're in a vicinity together. They want to go back to where they have came from, and they want to go with other cattle or be with other cattle. Thinking about normal cattle behavior is an important part of putting together a good facility. And if we think through that process and design it right, we can manage to decrease the likelihood of injury to cattle or humans. We can reduce the amount of stress on the cattle. We can manage to work cattle in a fashion where we need them to go is kind of their idea, and capitalize on those instinctual behaviors of the cattle to get them to do what we need them to do. Another important consideration is location. And we need to look at our particular layout of farm and ranch. Think about where pastures converge, so we've got a central catch point. Working facilities are an expensive, long-term investment. We don't want to build more of them than what we need, but if we're looking at, say, a quarter section, half section, a one section pasture, and we've got that divided up into grazing paddocks, and we might be able to put in one working system instead of putting in multiple working systems, obviously we're going to be able to invest in it, plan it better, and have a central point that's more convenient to catch cattle. Topography and just elevation of where we build a set of pens is very important. We need good drainage. We need that we're not going to be in standing water and catch a lot of manure over time, and so even if we have to backfill with some extra dirt or bring in a few loads of rock or gravel, it is worth getting that elevation, the slope draining off of it just right for the long-term benefit, so we can get trucks and trailers in there in inclement weather and be moving cattle around as we need to without being bogged down in a lot of mud and slop. Final consideration as far as location: give thoughts to where people are living, where your house is. It may not seem like a big deal 360 some days a year, but if we end up building a corral too close to our residence, flies, noise, things like that during times of really heavy use can get to be a headache for us. I hope some of this helps. I hope you get all your cattle working facilities designed so that they work for you now, they work for your specific operation. Give thought to what kind and size of cattle you're actually processing, but put the thought and the planning into that. And there's actually quite a bit of good information online to look at, and a couple reference sources in the article that accompanies this week's Cow-Calf Corner segment. So thanks for joining us this week.